everyone, I welcome you all to Manu Law Classes Current Affair Analysis. In this particular video, we will discuss the Hindu Delhi edition newspaper. So our first news is about Dalai Lama, as he said that Tibetans are seeking more autonomy and not separation from China. So as we know that Tibet, it was earlier a separate province. It was taken over by China, and after that Dalai Lama fled from China or Tibet to India. So here Dalai Lama is saying that he wishes to revisit Lhasa and he will prefer to live in Dharamshala, which is in India, and he is just saying that India should work on more delegation so that Tibetans can get more autonomy. So here he will also visit Sikkim, Karnataka, Bodh Gaya in Bihar, and Dalai Lama there repeated some of the seemingly conciliatory remarks as he made in the past, and China has rejected these remarks according to Dalai Lama, who was in exile in India since 1959. So this was about this whole article. Moving further toward our next important article that is coming in from the Asiad Games. So here gold on debut and youth to the fore were the main themes of India in the Asiad Games. So as we know in Asiad Games, Team India Tiram on Monday, Richa Ghosh, Kanika Ahuja and Smriti Mandhana. These are the three people, as you can see in the image, they won the match. And also there was a new record set in the 10-meter air rifle team competition on the second day of the game. And here the trio of Aishwarya Pratap Singh Tomar, Rudransh Patil, Divyansh Singh Panwar, they showed up the next generation of Indian shooter as they won, as they scored very well in this particular game. So here in the 10-meter rifle team, here first gold was arrived in India and the first two then ended up in shooting for bronze medal. So this was about this whole winning. In 25-meter rapid fire pistol, a team of Anish Bhandwala, Adarsh Singh and Vijayveer Sindhu, they finished third, but Vijayveer slipped fourth in the individual event, and the women cricket team ensured the crowning victory, defeating the Sri Lanka. So these were the important outcoming which was there in the Asiad Games, and these are the important medal which we got. So here we got 2 gold medal and 3 bronze medal till now, and soon we will see that what are the total tally, and then we will discuss about that which country got the maximum and which country India stand where. Moving further toward our next important article, here we have news coming in from the NDMC as it formed panel to preserve the assets created for G20 summit. So as we know, while India had a presidency of G20 summit, it created various important assets, monuments. As we know, Bharat Mandapam was created, and other than that, there were fountains which were made. So these all things will be preserved, and for that there will be a different kind of panel who will look after the preservation of these assets. So the assets included the potted plants, which was cared by 30 to 35 guards, and there are other also important asset which is there to safeguard these things. Moving further toward our next important article that is coming in from the editorial section, and here we will discuss about the G20 diplomacy and a shifting world order. So G20 summit, we have been discussing about it quite since a long time. Here again the editorial is talking about the G20 summit in Delhi, which happened on September 9 and 10. So there were a lot of confusion among the people, there were a lot of discontent among the people over various issues like the Ukraine crisis and all these things. But in this particular declaration, in this particular summit, the Delhi Declaration came up with a consensus, and it showed that even after so much of discontent, there will be a lot of consensus on important issue, and all the countries or all the members of G20, they are working toward a common goal and common agenda. So here securing an agreement on almost 100 issues on the agenda apart from the Russia-Europe-Ukraine crisis. It was no mean achievement. All told, the G20 outcome seemed to mirror the hopes and the wishes for the wider global community. And here the credit of India that it was able to attain such consensus was one of the major things. So here the New Delhi Declaration, it seemed to have something for everyone, and that's why there were various issues which was dealt in this New Delhi Declaration, like condemnation for the terrorism, climate issue, trembling renewable energy capacity, lifestyle for sustainable development, reform for the multilateral development banks, and also India's contribution in the digital infrastructure, public infrastructure, and about the UPI. So all these things came together in the form of consensus, and it was having everything or something for everyone. So these are quite a promising kind of achievement which was there. And here the Narendra Modi's dictum of one earth, one family, one future, or we can say Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, it was achieved when this consensus was reached. Now the consensus on Ukraine conflict became possible with the West agreeing to climb down from its demand not to point fingers at Russia for the Ukraine conflict and giving up insistence to proclaim the Russia as guilty. So here all the members who are from West, or we can say specifically from the G7 members are basically from Europe or West world. So they already, like, they were blaming, they were trying to raise the issue of this particular Russia-Ukraine crisis, and they want to blame Russia, but they did not blame, and they climbed down, and that's why we were able to achieve, or we were able to achieve a consensus which was agreeable to everyone. The New Delhi Declaration, it differed from the Bali Declaration because in New Delhi Declaration there was consensus, or there was a majority vote, and this Russian Federation was condemned for its aggression in Ukraine. This was there in Bali Declaration but not in the India or New Delhi Declaration. So the main difference between these two declarations is that while Bali was an accusatory in tone, New Delhi sought a resolution to the conflict. Apart from that, Russia and China, they have since hailed New Delhi Declaration in sharp contrast into their criticism in Bali Declaration. So India, being a founding member of the G20 grouping here in 1999, it also chaired or hosted the G20 meeting in 2002 of finance minister and central bank governors. Now the world is seeming to be a full circle, and today India is one of the leaders on whom the world count because of this particular New Delhi Declaration. Now we need to talk about the Chinese perception, and there is a need of caution because this is definitely a very great achievement, but we need some caution as the euphoria about the G20 outcome under India's presidency need to be tempered, and given the many dark clouds that exist on the horizon. China might have welcomed the Delhi Declaration, but there is an inherent foreboding of its affirmation in the G20. So here China though agreed to all the things, as I already told you that there was no such country which actually resisted this declaration. So China also agreed to it, but it is not like it is saying that G20 is not a platform for resolving any geopolitical or security issue because there was no such talk on the Russia-Ukraine crisis. And also there are other important things like the passage of the India Middle East Europe economic corridor. So China has sent an implicit warning that it will not become a geopolitical tool. This particular corridor plan is against the, we can say, BRI initiative which China is going on. So here this can be an alternative for the India economic East European corridor. And apart from that, we have PGII, which was also launched in the G7 summit, and it is also, we can say, one of the alternative for the border and road initiatives. So here the China is basically in trouble because there are a lot of initiative which has been passed out to counter the border and road initiative. So here China's perception is that G20 was being used by the West solely to try and impose its worldview. And a few other world leaders also do not seem to have given the Delhi G20 a thumbs up, and that's what they are not able to solve any issue regarding the strategic or geo-economic issues. Apart from that, South Korean president, they also warned the world that they are in a period of poly crisis, which encompasses geopolitical competition. And also there are a lot of inflation which has been caused because of the Russia-Ukraine crisis. So these issues were not dealt because the issue of Russia-Ukraine crisis was not dealt in G20 summit, and that's why there can be a lot of problem like these important issues are not being tackled down by the G20 members in this summit. India, as we know, for its own sake, it gave a fluid situation across the globe, and China remains a hegemon on Asia. And here it is basically notwithstanding China's economy, it has been a kind of thing which China is opposing. Apart from that, India is always a target for China because whatever India do, China always target India. So that's why we can say that West can possibly live with a situation in which several of its strategies to contain China have failed and India cannot. So there are two aspects. The first one is the West acknowledgement of India's growing economic strength and India's membership of Quad, which China is like hating, and that's why China is opposing so much. Now there is basically, we can say, a fading of the non-alignment because there are many new alignments which are there in this particular forum. That can be BRICS and that can be another issues or another bodies, another groupings. But by Delhi declaration, we tried to maintain all such thing and we tried to maintain a multipolar world. लेकिन यहाँ पे आपके चाइना जैसे कंट्री हैं those who are actually criticizing India for doing so. So this is all about this whole article. Now moving further toward our next article that is coming in from the text and context section. So here we know about the Cauvery water dispute. So on September 21, the Supreme Court asked Karnataka to continue releasing 5,000 cubic feet per second of water from the Cauvery river to the Tamil Nadu for 15 days as said by our Supreme Court, Honorable Supreme Court. And Karnataka told Supreme Court that daily flow of 5,000 cusecs of water to Tamil Nadu was against the interest, and the state, especially in the urban areas like the Bangalore, they will like have a crisis of the drinking water. So here the Karnataka government is actually opposing the Supreme Court judgment. Now Tamil Nadu is in the need of water. At least 3 lakh acres over which short-term crop called the kuruvai, it has been raised, and because of that these can go in a risk, and that's why they want that more water to be released and they are in need of water. So this was about this whole issue. I have already discussed about this issue quite since a long time. I told you all the basics of Cauvery river also. So just go through those notes and just try to revise these things so that you can get a better idea. Now moving further toward our next important article that is coming in from the National Education Policy or the New Education Policy. Here there are findings on the Parliament panels on National or New Educational Policy. So the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Education, which was headed by Bharatiya Janata Party MP Vivek Thakur. Just remember the name Vivek Thakur. He was the one who was heading the committee. So here they established or they implemented a report, they shared a report that is named Implementation of National Education Policy 2020 in Higher Education. This particular report here, 31 member panel tried to discuss the issue such as rigid separation of the disciplines, limited access to the higher education in socio-economic and disadvantaged area, and also they said that the institutional will face issue in implementing the multiple entry and multiple exit system. So we have already discussed about this system in our previous or yesterday's DNA analysis. Go through that so that you can have a better idea. And also the committee suggested improving the effectiveness and the impact of the Higher Educational Financial Agency. Its name is HEFA. This will be a financing agency for the higher education institution, and it will provide funding to these institutions so that they can basically source and they can go for further organization, and private sector also come for the funding, and they can just help students for further good studies and go for research. And this can also make HEFA more competitive and affordable so that higher education institutions can be more competitive. So this is about this whole article. Moving further toward our next important article, that is coming in from the international relation, we can say. Jaishankar and Guterres, they discussed reform on the global financial institutional and the sustainability. So after meeting with the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, he is the Secretary General, they held bilateral talks on Monday, and they discussed the sustainability agenda and the reform of the international financial institution as per Mr. Jaishankar. So here the minister met Mr. Guterres, and he was met at the UN headquarters in New York, and here after the addressing the 78th General Assembly. So they discussed on the issues like India's presidency has contributed to strengthening UN's Sustainable Development Agenda. UN SDGs were reiterated in the G20 summit, and also these all countries, these all members of G20, they focused on that how they can achieve this G20 target. Apart from that, also they discussed on various other reform agenda which is needed for greater lending capacity for the World Bank and other board based representation for the countries on the boards. These things were discussed, and also they talked about Global South and Global South Summit and how these Global South are actually in critical issues regarding these things, regarding the climate change, and how Global South are actually suffering. And also they held, Mr. Jaishankar also held talk with Madagascar Foreign Minister Yuvete Slaya, and they discussed developmental partnership, millets, rice production, digital delivery, and defense cooperation. So these were the important kind of summits which held after 78th UN General Session, 78th session of the UNGA summit. And here in the background of these particular initiative, these conferences were happening. Moving further toward our next important article, that is coming in from the state section, and here we will discuss about important point of Joshimath sinking. So the 8 institutions, they gave reasons why Joshimath is actually sinking. So here separate study was conducted by 8 premier institutions to study the cause of the land subsidence in Joshimath. As we know, the land is sinking inside the earth in Joshimath area. So there are various factors which they said, like the seismic activities, construction loopholes, population pressure, poor drainage system, and there can be some other reasons which are actually leading to the sinking of this Joshimath town. So here the institution include the Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology, the National Geophysical Research Institute, the National Institute of Hydrology, the Indian Institute of Technology Roorkee, and the Indian Institute of Remote Sensing, and also the Geological Survey of India and the CGWB. These all along with CBRI, they conducted a conference, and there basically they learned about, they identified the cause of this land subsidence. So here they submitted their report, and it was made public by the Uttarakhand High Court, and here they are just saying that there are 44%, 42% and 14% of masonry, RCC and other hybrid construction typologies, which is basically causing a lot of trouble. And also there are irregular boulders and clay of varying thickness which is being deposited in this area, and such deposits are less cohesive and they are susceptible to the slow subsidence and also the landslide subsidence. So that's why this whole area is sinking. Other than that, we have one more important point which is needed to be discussed in this particular newspaper, that is about AFSPA, that is there in news. So here in this article, AFSPA is in news, so we will try to discuss about it, because in this particular article only this thing is important. So please write down about Armed Forces Special Powers Act, or we simply say it AFSPA. Okay. This particular law was enacted by Parliament in the year of 1958, and it gave armed forces like your Army, Air Force, Central Paramilitary Force the special power and also the immunity to maintain public order in these disturbed areas. Okay. It can be applied only after an area has been declared disturbed under the section 2 of Act. Any area is called disturbed area, and an area can be considered to be disturbed because of there is a difference or any dispute among different religious, racial, language or the regional group or caste and communities. So who declared this area as disturbed? Section 3 of this act empowers the governors of the state or the union territory to declare any area and to declare a kind of official notification, and hence after that the area can be declared as disturbed area. So there are also special power which has been given under section 4 of this act. Special power is being provided, and here the special power include the right to use force even to the extent of causing death, destroy army, ammunition dump, fortification, shelters and hideout. The power to arrest without a warrant is also under this particular special power, and also the power to seize and search without any warrant in any premise is given to the armed forces, and they are also immune to any kind of further inquiry whatever they have conducted under their special power. So this is about AFSPA. Now moving back to our newspaper, and here we have our last news which is coming in from the world section, and here we will discuss an important news. Here Ukraine says that the Russia Black Sea Fleet commander was killed. So Ukraine Special Force said on Monday that Admiral Viktor Skolov, the commander of the Russia Black Sea Fleet, he was killed in Ukrainian attack. So just remember the name because this is important. So this is all for today. I hope you liked the lecture. I hope you got to know a lot of things. Thank you everyone. Thank you for attending this lecture.